North Korea is known for its secrecy and strict control, but some of its laws are downright bizarre. Today we're diving into the craziest laws in North Korea that will leave you speechless. From mandated hairstyles to the prohibition of international phone calls, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea operates under a unique set of regulations that might seem unbelievable to the outside world. So buckle up as we take a deep dive into the legal oddities of one of the most isolated nations on Earth. Let's start with something seemingly simple: haircuts. Law expert, forget about the latest trends or expressing your individuality through a mohawk, because in the DPRK you have a grand total of 28 government-approved hairstyles to choose from. 10 of those are for men, and let's be clear, we're not talking about subtle variations on a theme here. We're talking about a binary choice between side part and slightly longer side part. And for the women out there, well, you have a few more options, but don't get too excited. Most of them involve variations on a bob that wouldn't look out of place in a 1950s yearbook photo. Law expert, according to North Korean officials, these strict regulations are all about maintaining social order and preventing the infiltration of decadent Western influences. But let's be real, this isn't about hairstyles, is it? It's about control. It's about dictating every aspect of people's lives, right down to the very hairs on their heads. And in North Korea, that message is pretty clear: conform or else. If you thought North Korea's obsession with hair was a bit much, just wait until you hear about their stance on Western fashion and music. Journalist. In an effort to shield its citizens from the corrupting influences of the West, North Korea has implemented a strict ban on a wide range of Western fashion items, including but not limited to blue jeans, skinny jeans, ripped jeans, basically any type of jeans that doesn't scream government-issued potato sack. And don't even think about rocking a t-shirt with an English slogan on it, because that's a one-way ticket to a forced labor camp. But the fashion police aren't the only ones working overtime in North Korea. The music police are equally vigilant in their quest to stamp out any hint of Western influence. Listening to, possessing, or even distributing Western music is strictly prohibited, and the penalties for violating these laws are nothing short of draconian. Journalist. According to the North Korean government, it's all about preserving their cultural purity. They claim that exposure to Western music will lead to moral decay and undermine their socialist values. But let's be honest, this isn't about protecting anyone's culture. It's about preventing the free flow of information and ideas. Moving on from personal style to interior design, because in North Korea, even how you decorate your home is subject to government scrutiny. Law expert. You're legally obligated to display portraits of the country's eternal leaders, Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il, in prominent locations within your humble abode. Historian, these portraits aren't just suggested, they're mandatory. And not just any old portraits will do. There are specific state-sanctioned versions that citizens are required to purchase and display with the utmost care and respect. Now, you might be thinking, okay, that's a little weird, but it's just a couple of pictures, right? Law expert, wrong. These portraits are treated with an almost religious reverence in North Korea. Citizens are expected to keep them spotlessly clean, and any damage to the portraits is considered a serious offense. This obsession with controlling the very fabric of people's homes is a chilling reminder of the Orwellian reality of life in North Korea. In the DPRK, making international phone calls is strictly prohibited for the vast majority of the population. The only people allowed to make international calls are high-ranking government officials and a select few individuals with special permission, and even then, these calls are closely monitored by the authorities. The official reason for this ban is to prevent the spread of dangerous information and to protect national security. But let's be real, this is just another way for the North Korean government to control the flow of information and to keep its citizens isolated from the outside world. For many of us, the freedom to travel and explore new places is something we cherish. But in North Korea, even moving around within the country is tightly controlled.
To travel within the country, North Korean citizens need to obtain an internal passport and a travel permit from the authorities. Applicants are subject to rigorous background checks and interviews, and only those deemed politically reliable are granted permission to travel.
The reasons for these restrictions are, you guessed it, to maintain social order and to prevent the spread of subversive ideas. By limiting freedom of movement, the government can more easily monitor and control its citizens, making it much harder for them to organize or dissent. It's a classic tactic used by authoritarian regimes throughout history, and North Korea is no exception. In today's digital age, access to the internet is practically considered a fundamental human right. But in North Korea, the internet is a luxury reserved for the elite few.
Instead of having access to the open internet, North Korean citizens are only allowed to access a carefully curated intranet known as Kwangmyong, which is essentially a government-controlled, walled-off version of the internet.
And what can you find on this glorious intranet, you ask? Well, don't get your hopes up. Kwangmyong is heavily censored and contains only a limited number of websites, most of which are government-run or propaganda outlets.
This strict control over internet access is, unsurprisingly, all about maintaining the government's grip on information and preventing the spread of dangerous ideas. By limiting what its citizens can access online, the North Korean government can more easily control the narrative and maintain its grip on power.
So, you can forget about browsing social media, reading independent news sources, or watching cat videos on YouTube.
Ah, the joys of attending a mandatory government-organized event. The thrill of forced participation, the excitement of synchronized chanting, the sheer delight of knowing that you have absolutely no choice in the matter.
Well, in North Korea, this is just a regular part of life.
And when I say required, I mean required. Attendance is not optional, and failing to show up without a valid excuse can have serious consequences.
The official line is that these events are a way for citizens to express their love and devotion to the supreme leader and to celebrate the country's achievements. But let's be real, these events are nothing more than elaborate propaganda exercises designed to reinforce the regime's ideology and to project an image of unity and strength to the outside world. For the participants, these events are often tedious and time-consuming affairs. In many parts of the world, freedom of religion is considered a fundamental human right. But in North Korea, religious belief is viewed with suspicion and often met with persecution.
While the North Korean constitution technically guarantees freedom of religion, the reality on the ground is very different. In practice, the government severely restricts religious activities and actively persecutes those who dare to practice their faith outside of state-sanctioned institutions.
Other religious groups, such as Buddhists and shamanists, also face harassment and discrimination. The North Korean government justifies its crackdown on religion by claiming that it is a tool of Western imperialism and a threat to national unity. This systematic suppression of religious freedom is a stark reminder of the totalitarian nature of the North Korean regime and its utter disregard for basic human rights. Education is often touted as the great equalizer, the key to a brighter future. But in North Korea, even education comes with a hefty price tag.
I'm talking about literal out-of-pocket expenses for basic school supplies like desks and chairs.
From desks and chairs to textbooks and writing materials, the burden of equipping classrooms falls squarely on the shoulders of parents, many of whom are already struggling to put food on the table.
Children from wealthier families have access to better quality supplies, while those from poorer backgrounds are often left to make do with substandard or makeshift furniture. This creates a two-tiered education system where students from disadvantaged backgrounds are already at a disadvantage before they even set foot in the classroom.
It's a classic example of how economic inequality can perpetuate cycles of poverty and limit opportunities for upward mobility. The concept of private property is so ingrained in many societies that it's almost impossible to imagine life without it. But in North Korea, private property is but a distant dream.
Citizens are essentially tenants in their own country, subject to the whims of the state. They can be relocated at any time, and their homes can be seized without warning or compensation.
The official justification for this system is that it promotes equality and prevents the accumulation of wealth by a select few. But in reality, it simply concentrates power in the hands of the ruling elite, who can use their control over property to reward loyalty and punish dissent.
This system of state ownership has had a devastating impact on the North Korean economy, stifling innovation and entrepreneurship. Without the security of property rights, there is little incentive for individuals to invest in their businesses or to strive for economic advancement.
And there you have it, folks. a glimpse into the bizarre and often disturbing world of North Korean law. These regulations, as baffling and absurd as they may seem, are a stark reminder of the reality of life for millions of North Koreans living under one of the most oppressive regimes on Earth. What do you think about these regulations? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more eye-opening content.